An answer sent to the Ecclesiastical Assembly at London by Giovanni Diodati. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. An answer sent to the Ecclesiastical Assembly at London by the Reverend, noble and learned man John Diodati, the famous professor of divinity and most vigilant pastor of Geneva. Translated out of the Latin into English, Geneva, printed for the good of Great Britain, 1646. The translator's preface to the simple, seduced reader. Reader, may the Father of lights open thine eyes to see over this stranger's shoulders, and by this impartial perspective, what thou, whilst kept down thus low by thy new masters, and through thy seducer's false medium, hast not hitherto been suffered to perceive, it being till now purposely hid from thine eyes. Behold a mere stranger, that notwithstanding his manifold obligations and personal engagements to a contrary discipline in the Church and different form of government in the state, yet overruled by the manifest truth and honesty of the King's cause, breaks through all those restraints of his liberty as far as he may, to tell thee thus much plain English truth. Behold here Geneva's veneration and full vindication too of thine own mother, the Church of England, as it stood under episcopacy, traduced here at home by her own spurious brood for superstitions, popish, anti-Christian what-not, and this apology directed to the assemblymen in answer to their letter, whatever it was. Behold here again a clear justification of the King, vilified by his own for that, for which strangers do admire him, his clemency, his inclinations to peace, his acts of grace, etc. Behold here the root of gall, that which hath brought forth all these national mischiefs, the popular tumults and conspiracies pointed at here, as the only evident cause of the King's divorce from the Parliament. See here by whom poor Ireland was deserted. One thing also thou mayest here take notice of from these standers-by, that the clergy, in their own proper sphere, may be as fit and as honest, and perhaps in some respects more able, for the good speed of a treaty, than those that do slight them with utter preterition. Last of all, behold here the loyal and religious subject's only militia, or his own proper magazine, to wit, the known laws of the land. That, and prayer and submission are the only defensive weapons allowed here by this master of fence. I say no more to thee, save only that I do heartily pity thee, and therefore I do still pray for thee and for all thy fellow bondmen, that God will bring into the way of truth all such as have erred and are deceived. Amen. Reverend, godly, and worthy sirs, our dear brethren and companions in the work of the Lord, if proportionably to the grief we have conceived at your letters, wherein you have expressed the most sad face of your affairs, we had but as much ability either by our consolations to assuage your sorrows, or by our counsels to ease your burdens, or by any our cooperation to help your extremity, we should think ourselves very happy in so well corresponding with your honourable and most loving compilation of us, and right glad we should be thus to requite you with our best and effectual good offices. But alas, as the scantness of our capacity in this kind, so the ignorance of the more inward causes of so many miseries, and chiefly the perplexed and dangerous nature of the matters now in agitation among you. All these put together strike us quite dumb. We are as men wholly at a stand, able only, in a kind of silent astonishment or holy horror, to admire and to adore that finger of God which is now lifted up over you all. But since, being by you so lovingly invited to it, we must needs at least break off our silence, we are reduced to an extraordinary suspense both of minds and of pens, what to say first or last, or indeed what to say at all. And now in the end, after long deliberation, lest, as Job's friends, we should transgress by precipitate and unseasonable discourse, behold our hearts and mouths top full of the senses and expressions of our hearty commiseration, our eyes running down with tears of compassion, our breasts even swollen up with sighs and groans at your calamities. These are they, God is our witness, that fill up the greatest part of our private prayers, of our public devotions, fastings, and humiliations, in all which we are resolved to give the Father of mercies no rest, until your tranquillity, being once more ordained in heaven, God do extend peace upon earth unto you all like a river, and the fullness of his blessing like an ever-flowing stream. Our affairs, yea, the general interest of all the Reformed churches are so closely involved in yours, and so mutually depending thereon, that your safety, once procured, assures us all of our own good estates. Therefore, especially during this grievous tempest, which may seem to bring about again the heavy time of the saints' great primitive tribulation, we are, in a manner, compelled with trembling hearts and lips to pour out our lamentations into the ears of our most gracious and heavenly Father, no longer now only preparing to contend by fire, as he revealed it in a vision to his prophet Amos, but already for a long time really contending by fire indeed. And how then can we forbear from crying out, O Lord, forgive, cease, we beseech thee, by whom shall Jacob arise, for he is small, and round about all in a flame, by the fire of thy burning indignation. From this our own watchtower, untouched as yet by divine miracle, we have beheld this furious conflagration spreading itself all over. We have seen the Grisino Italian churches utterly defaced, the gospel in Bohemia, its ancient seat, wholly extirpated, the Palatinate devoured, the French churches deprived of all human supports and refuges, like so many poor little callow birds, alive indeed, but only during pleasure. The German churches almost all overshaken, yea, more than half destroyed, your own Ireland swallowed up with an unexpected deluge of assassins and robbers. One only thing was wanting to that huge heap of public calamity, namely that flourishing England, the very eye and excellency of all the churches, Christ's own choice, purchase, and peculiar, the sanctuary of the afflicted, the arsenal of the faint-hearted, the magazines of the needy, that royal standard of good hope, should by so unlooked-for an accident, without any external enemy or foreign impression, become in a manner its own fellow de se, and make an end of itself with its own cruel hands. What a sad spectacle is this, to see that church thus trodden under foot, to see that glorious fold of our Lord thus ransacked, yea, worried, not by the wild beasts of the forest, not torn in pieces by the merciless paws of the lion or of the wolf, but utterly dismembered by its own unnatural sheep, enraged and exasperated one against another. An horrid example this, and till now never heard of amongst the Reformed churches. It seems heretofore like Christ's own true sheep. They were kept tame by the fear of God, united by the same bond of faith, knit together by the apprehension of the common enemy, and so long they did both express and exercise, holily and faithfully, their mutual charity, quiet, and unity amongst themselves, in all which they preserve themselves from the rage of the wolf by the Christian simplicity of their own good conditions, by the innocency of their pious lives, by the sanctity of their religion, by the constant undauntedness of their holy faith. But now we are wholly struck with horror at the change of that so glorious face of your church, whilst we hear at this distance the loud reports of those deadly wars that are now flaming up betwixt the king and his people, to see at daggers drawing again, brethren against brethren, parents against their own children, Christ's sheep pushing against and goring their own fellows, nay, their own shepherds. At all this we are utterly amazed, and would scarcely have believed that in the self-same pitched field, one and the same God and Father, in the name of one and the same mediator, at one and the same time could be invocated for help on both sides, to shed the blood of those that for the major part had hitherto, by so many clear demonstrations in the whole equal course of their lives, equal in their piety towards God, equal in their love and loyalty towards their country, approved themselves such faithful and true brethren one to another. Strange that these should now against their own bowels turn all their warlike power, far better if employed in the just punishments of their own treacherous neighbours, or towards the relief of their dearest brethren, so long bowing the back under the weight of their bondage, and even in the last gasp for help. What marvel, then, if these your cruel distractions have awakened, yea, divided even to a variety, the judgments and affections too of Christendom? Neither do we ourselves deny, but that for a while we did somewhat stagger at, and as it were fluctuate about it. Yet that demur of ours did neither proceed from prejudice against, nor from partiality towards either side, as not being called upon by either, neither publicly nor privately, till now of late in your reference unto us, which we do reckon as no small piece of honour, since in your esteem our judgment may seem of so much weight, as able to advance or balance down either party, both being of such extraordinary quality. We have contained ourselves within the bounds of a conscionable judgment, and impartial charity towards both parties, for indeed ye are both brethren. We have neither way exceeded the compass of our own measure, but still keep a mean, as rejoicing on the one hand at those good things which we did hear were entertained with the general applause of all good men, so on the other hand we could not but behold with grief those other sinister passages that in themselves did carry a more fatal appearance. We were overjoyed at the issue of the Scottish troubles that seemed at first to presage a combustion not unlike this of yours, and yet far sooner quenched, for as by God's own admirable handiwork, so by the never enough magnified of your most gracious King, and by the concord of that wary nation, that fire was in time put out, or ever it did burst into a more open flame. At the first report of these your own commotions, our minds were possessed with a good hope that all past offences might with the same promptitude and facility be forthwith repaired, and all matters composed, so that what actions or counsels should appear amiss might by the benignity of the best of princes be easily redressed, and consequently both church and commonwealth without noise or bloodshed be kept in due order. In pursuance of all which, we could not but admire the happy and glorious beginnings of the Parliament, and the more than fatherly affection of his most gracious Majesty, evidenced by his enacting those laws, from which, for the time to come, there was a clear hope of a government full of equity and freed from all corruption, an example not so rare as indeed singular in this our wild generation, so fertile of violent powers and princes. But all these our goodly hopes were soon blasted by that raging storm and tempest of popular tumults among you, that did force away both your most gracious prince from his parliament, as also a great part of the parliament from itself. Since which we have heard indeed of many attempts and enterprises, many propositions and projects, but all of them come to nothing. Nothing is yet brought to perfection, nothing is yet rightly settled or established. The business of the Church might seem the chief object of your care and solicitude. If it had been handled and debated at times, and with minds calm and quiet, had the opposite judgments been compared and impartially weighed one with another, such an orderly course might happily have purchased a lasting peace to your kingdom, and also rendered unto your church that most desired primitive face of the apostolical times. But behold, how quite contrary the event hath fallen out. For the minds of both sides being averse from, yea, violently bent one against another, this very matter hath proved the great rock of offence by exasperating the wound, and tearing it wider and wider, by distracting more and more asunder the hearts of each party, distempered enough already through former partiality and discord of affections. Nay, if the report be true, these church distractions have opened a wide gap to so many boisterous and private spirits, which we here have assumed to themselves the most mischievous title of independence, than which destructive sect nothing could more undermine, yea, quite overturn the very foundation of the Church. Besides all that, we have been extremely grieved at this, that the spirit of division hath so plentifully sown among you his pernicious tares of fears and jealousies, that they have not only fructified, but even overgrown all over all manner of mutual trust, in despite of so many royal protestations sealed and bound up with so many most grievous imprecations. But the very top and height of all our sorrows on your behalfs hath been this, that all that cursed fuel thus heaped on is now at last kindled into a bloody war, lengthened on both sides by a multiplication of deadly feuds, so that during such an universal combustion, whatever men's bare words, and never so frequent protestations otherwise may pretend, yet the royal honour, power, and dignity cannot but fall into utter contempt, and on the contrary, the licentiousness of the most audacious and lawless cannot but gather strength and outgrow the other. And then, consequently, piety must needs decay, mutual love and charity must utterly vanish away, and instead thereof a kind of savage disposition, yea, brutish rage, must needs invade at last the minds and manners of the men of this generation, who, in the process of time, will no longer look upon the old original causes that began the war, but rather upon the new mutual injuries freshly done, or received in the very progress or prosecution of the war between two parties divided far more by an odious difference of reproachful names, as it were, infamous brands fixed upon each other, than really by the cause itself. It had been far more easy unto us and all good men else to deliver our judgments upon your case, had the major part of either side differed from the other, either in the more essential points of religion, or else dissented about the fundamental laws of the Commonwealth, or had either party been oppressed by the other in a direct way of open persecution, or had there been an introduction of public tyranny against the laws through the baseness and pusillanimity of the other party. But as for you, you have abundant cause of comfort or security against all these evils, since by virtue of your own most just and powerful laws, those laws that already have been indifferently agreed upon by the general consent of all parties concerned, you may with ease prevent or put all those forementioned evils which in other kingdoms may seem almost unavoidable. All these considerations put together have moved us for a long while seriously to deliberate and advise what might be at last the best expedient left to procure an honest and sure peace among you. Indeed, we have been much scandalized that all the mediations of several kingdoms and provinces in league with you have been tried and used all in vain. Howbeit, it came into our mind to propound this one medium more, whether now at last there be yet any hope to obtain from the King's most gracious Majesty and from the Parliament that of both sides ecclesiastical persons may be chosen of unquestioned trust and fame-proof beyond all suspicion, to whom this great business may be committed, namely, that comparing the chief points now in controversy, they may chalk out some good way towards an holy peace. But first, these men must, by God's Spirit, themselves be dispossessed of all factious inclinations, that so they may become fit umpires and trustees of the public peace, and impartial ambassadors of reconciliation between both parties, and also able and studious too by all their speeches, exhortations, and sacred obtestations to charm the hearts that on both sides are so obdurate in war and bloodshed. This were the ready way, by thus imposing the sacred censer in the very midst of these public flames, to quench all the heart-burnings, for who knows whether at the devout prayers and holy groans of persons sacred, thus prostrate at the footstool of the heavenly grace, the divine power and glory may not break out once more, and show forth itself by moving the hearts of both parties to lay down all hatred and public enmities. The only way to procure such sound counsel of both sides, and to purchase again the precious blessing of a general peace, is especially when all human helps fail to call in the divine assistance which no man did ever try in vain. By these good means that may be brought to pass, what cannot be helped for from civil war, however the success prove, that by a voluntary inclination of minds the wound shall be so fully closed up, as that love and charity may in time perfectly be recovered. The good opinion which you have conceived of us may suffer us to offer these considerations unto you. It might be immodesty in us to prescribe or to advise you any further, but no law of modesty can ever forbid us to wish and to vow and to beseech God for you, yea, to appeal unto God and to adjure you all in his name. O then, above all, take a speedy and special care for a sure and sound peace, whatever it be, 'tis to be preferred before any civil broils. Beware lest the fortune of war, smiling upon you, draw you on and tempt you to commit your great affairs to the ambiguous chance of victory, than which nothing can happen more deadly, yea, pernicious unto the Commonwealth. Roll away that huge scandal that lies so heavily upon the whole Christian world, yea, wash and wipe off that foul stain of black oppression, charged especially upon the purest profession of the gospel, as if still it did in a kind of antipathy or secret hatred oppose and oppugn all kingly power and supreme authority. Mitigate and assuage the exulterated and too much provoked mind of your king, and do not compel him to pinnacles and precipices. Rather, bear with some blemishes and corruptions, from which no empire could yet wholly be free, no, not in its most flourishing estate. Account not those remedies the best that are abruptly applied and accumulated, but those rather that, being taken in by degrees, may in time by little and little go down more easily and digest the better, and so at last obtain a confirmation. And last of all, by the bowels and mercy of Christ, suffer yourselves to be entreated, that we may no longer see that wealth, power, and strength, which God hath graciously bestowed upon you, employed, yea, utterly wasted, in the fatal ruin of your own selves, but rather let it be stretched out to the relief and support of so many of your own most afflicted brethren, even panting after your own peace. May the God of peace himself hear, accept, and grant these our sincere devotions. May God defeat all the plots and disappoint all the machinations of the devil and of Antichrist. May the same God restore your kingdom and your churches to that high state and pitch of holiness and of glory in which upon the theatre of the universal church they have hitherto excelled and outshined all the churches upon earth. As for us, take in good part this our plain sense, delivered freely unto you in a brotherly confidence, and pardon and impute our delay of answer unto these weighty reasons. The report was here very strong, that you are now very fair for a treaty of peace. Therefore, we thought it fit to expect what a day might bring forth, that so all our words and all our affections too might overflow with mere gratulations and full expressions of our joys. But sorry we are, that we have yet again been deceived with vain hopes. And now, that we may speedily recover and enjoy that happiness, we both wish and pray, with as much devotion as becomes your dearest brethren, who glory not a little in your good esteem of us, that God will pour down upon you his richest benedictions, together with a large measure of his wisdom and spiritual strength. Farewell, and prosper in the Lord. End of an answer sent to the Ecclesiastical Assembly at London by Giovanni Diodati.